They say empires rise through ambition, but Rome rose through precision, because when the legions marched, the world didn't just see an army, it saw a machine engineered for domination. Imagine a battlefield where dust clouds boil, where enemy warriors shout in chaotic fury, and then, cutting through the noise, comes the rhythmic thunder of hobnailed boots striking the earth in perfect unison. Rome didn't win because it had the strongest soldiers. It won because it transformed war into geometry, discipline, and psychological warfare. The legionary wasn't just a fighter. He was a moving part in a living weapon designed to grind down kingdoms, tribes, and entire civilizations. And it all began with a simple but terrifying idea: formations that turned human beings into walls, blades, and storms. The iconic testudo, the tortoise, was more than a shield wall. It was Rome challenging the gods of war themselves. Arrows darkened the sky, but the formation absorbed them with eerie calm as hundreds of shields locked overhead like iron scales. Enemies screamed in frustration as volleys bounced harmlessly off the armored shell, creeping closer, step by relentless step, until suddenly it burst open into a surge of javelins and blades. But the testudo was only the beginning. The triplex acies, the triple battle line, was Rome's chessboard on open ground. 3 layers of hardened fighters rotated like gears. The front line absorbed the first shot, the second rolled forward fresh and ready, and the third held like a coiled spring waiting to crush any breakthrough. No army in the ancient world had ever seen anything like it. While rivals charged in wild, emotional fury, Roman commanders manipulated fatigue like a weapon, making battles feel endless to their enemies while preserving their own strength. But the real genius wasn't in the formations. It was in the adaptability. Rome rewrote its tactics every time it met a new enemy. Facing Greek phalanxes? Break them apart with mobility and relentless pilum volleys. Fighting the Parthian horse archers? Unleash flexible cohorts that absorbed arrows, closed distance, and forced close-quarters combat. Confronting barbarian tribes that relied on overwhelming charges? Anchor the line, hold formation, then counterattack with terrifying precision when the enemy's momentum finally died. Rome understood something most armies never grasped. No formation is invincible, but a system built on discipline, creativity, and constant refinement becomes unstoppable. Every legionary trained not only to fight, but to think, to adjust, to hold the line for hours without breaking. When one man fell, the formation closed instantly, as if the army itself refused to acknowledge weakness. And behind it all stood the centurions, the iron spine of Rome, barking orders with voices honed on decades of war. They carried vine staffs, not for ceremony but for enforcing discipline, so fierce that an entire unit could pivot, advance, or lock shields in the time it took an enemy to blink. To face Rome was to face men who fought as if their minds were welded together. Even Roman engineering played into their tactics. Marching camps transformed battlefields into Roman territory before the fighting even began. Roads turned supply lines into highways of conquest. Siege towers, ballistae, and onagers extended the reach of their formations into a new dimension, one where distance offered no safety. If you retreated behind a wall, Rome simply turned that wall into your tomb. And perhaps the most shocking part? Rome didn't need overwhelming numbers. 10,000 Romans in formation could defeat twice or 3 times their number because the battlefield wasn't a chaos of individuals. It was a grid Rome controlled with terrifying precision. Foreign generals feared Roman formations not just for their effectiveness, but for what they represented, a civilization that turned discipline into a weapon sharper than any gladius. Every clash, from the Germanic forests to the African deserts to the rolling hills of Britannia, became another demonstration of Rome's ability to bend war to its will. And in the end, that's how an Italian city-state expanded into a superpower spanning 3 continents. Not through chance, not through brute strength, but through formations that rewrote the rules of combat, tactics that evolved faster than enemies could adapt, and soldiers trained to be the beating heart of the greatest war machine the ancient world had ever seen. And yet, the true secret behind Rome's battlefield dominance wasn't just the formations themselves. It was the psychological warfare embedded within them. When enemy scouts first glimpsed a Roman army assembling, they didn't see fear, hesitation, or disorder. They saw rows of men snapping into formation with mechanical precision, shields rising at the exact same angle, pila lifted in perfect rhythm. It was like watching an iron organism awaken. Many battles were won before the first charge simply because Rome made its enemies feel outmatched, outnumbered, and outplanned, even when the opposite was true. And when the fighting finally erupted, Rome unleashed another brutal innovation: controlled aggression. Legionaries weren't told to fight until exhausted. They were taught to strike, kill, and instantly rotate out, replaced by fresh troops from behind. It created a relentless cycle of pressure that drained enemy morale while preserving Roman stamina. This system allowed Rome to wage battles not for minutes, but for hours, even entire days. Most ancient armies shattered long before that, their warriors collapsing under heat, fear, and fatigue. Rome simply kept going. But perhaps the most underestimated tactic was Roman communication. Horn blasts, standards, and hand signals allowed commanders to shift formations mid-battle, redirect forces, tighten or widen fronts, and even execute feigned retreats, all without dissolving into chaos. Where other armies struggled to adapt to a changing battlefield, Rome treated it like a living puzzle, reshaping its lines to counter every unexpected move. This tactical fluidity is what allowed Caesar to encircle larger forces at Alesia, Scipio to outmaneuver Hannibal at Zama, and countless unnamed centurions to turn near disasters into grinding victories. And as Rome expanded, its formations expanded with it. Auxiliary troops brought new skills: archers from the east, cavalry from Numidia, slingers from the Balearic Islands, each integrated into the Roman system to fill strategic gaps. This diversity didn't weaken Rome, it amplified it. Every new culture they conquered added another weapon to the Roman arsenal. In the final analysis, Rome's dominance came from a philosophy as powerful as its swords: the belief that war was not chaos but order, not emotion but method. On battlefields soaked with fear and uncertainty, Rome brought clarity. Where enemies charged blindly, Rome advanced with purpose. Where others relied on heroes, Rome relied on the machine. Hundreds of men moving with one will, one rhythm, one unstoppable momentum. And that is how the legions didn't just win battles. They reshaped continents, dismantled empires, absorbed nations, and forged the single most influential civilization the Western world has ever known. Because when Rome marched in formation, the world moved aside. And even as the centuries passed and Rome evolved from republic to empire, its formations continued to adapt like a living organism, learning from every wound, every victory, every mistake. On distant frontiers, commanders realized that rigid discipline alone wasn't enough, so they began blending Roman structure with local genius. In the forests of Germania, where visibility collapsed into choking walls of trees, the legions shifted from broad, open-field formations to smaller, tighter units capable of rapid pivots and ambush counterattacks. They learned to fight in choke points, to rotate cohorts through narrow passes, and to transform even hostile terrain into an extension of Roman order. In the harsh deserts of the East, Rome adjusted again. Against swift cavalry and hit-and-run archers, the legions incorporated more flexible crescent and semi-open formations, allowing auxiliary cavalry to sweep out from the wings, while infantry held firm at the center. Rome's genius was never stubborn pride. It was the ability to look at an enemy's strengths and quietly, confidently reinvent the rules of engagement. Even naval battles weren't safe from Rome's innovation. Unable to match the maritime experience of Carthage, Rome simply redesigned sea warfare altogether. They invented the Corvus boarding bridge, turning naval combat into infantry combat, something Rome excelled at. Suddenly, sea battles weren't about maneuvering or ship handling. They were about Roman soldiers storming enemy decks in tight formations, transforming waves into yet another battlefield Rome could dominate. And yet, for all the strategy, for all the engineering, for all the brilliance of their battlefield geometry, the heart of Roman warfare always returned to one unbreakable truth. Rome fought as a collective mind. No single warrior's glory mattered more than the line. No individual hero could disrupt the formation. Even the greatest generals, from Caesar to Trajan to Germanicus, won not because they commanded armies of unmatched strength, but because they commanded armies of unmatched unity. This unity created something more terrifying than any weapon: inevitability. Enemies believed Rome was coming. Enemies believed Rome could not be stopped. Enemies believed that once the legions set their sights on a land, its fate was already sealed. In belief, fear was a force Rome used masterfully. The shadow of the eagle standard spread ahead of the legions like a prophecy, breaking resistance before the spear points even glinted in the sun. And that is the true legacy of Roman formations and tactics. Not just the battle lines, not just the shields and gladi, but the idea that an army could be more than men. It could be intention. It could be discipline shaped into something supernatural. It could be a force that rewrote history not through chaos, but through meticulous order. The Roman Empire expanded not because its enemies were weak, but because Rome understood the ultimate truth of warfare. The side that masters organization masters destiny. And for nearly 1,000 years, no one organized war like Rome did.